Welcome into the Wiltfong Whiparound. Today is Thursday, April 10th, and we got a big show because big names are on campus all across America with spring games being played this weekend. Plus, on this show, we just got news of a major development with the top recruit in America, and we got Steve Wiltfong, On3 national analyst. He's here. We're going to break it all down, but first, you guys do me a favor. Hit subscribe to the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube, the On3 Recruits channel. All right, let's bring in the best insider in the business, Steve Wiltfong. And Steve, you just got a great quote from Jackson Cantwell. He said, quote, "I have all the information I need. Don't know how an OV would change that really." So he's basically saying, I don't need to go on any more visits. It's go time. How do you read this?
Well, I think that Jackson Cantwell is ready to make his college decision. He's been able to visit his top schools numerous times. He's had a lot of dialogue with each of these coaching staffs, and he's in the midst of trying to finish his junior track season strong as he goes after national records and tries to perform at a high level. I talked to Jackson today. I talked to his dad today. They're like, by the end of the week, we are tired. And to go on these recruiting visits when there's nothing more he can learn about these programs, it's time for him to make his college decision. He's closing in on his choice. He has 6 finalists. You have Georgia, you have Oregon, you have Miami, you got Michigan, you got Ohio State, and of course you have in-state Missouri. A lot of the buzz, and we've been talking about it on the Wiltfong Whiparound, has been around Georgia. Much of his process. Oregon certainly has been in that top 2. And the program that we've had rocketing up is Miami, a fall visit, then an amazing visit to the Hurricanes campus this spring where he got a chance to be around the program for a few days. Talk to Mario Cristobal and that coaching staff about how they get first-year starters ready to hop in to the lineup and play at a high level, how Mario Cristobal has done that historically at Alabama, Oregon, and now Miami, being able to point to guys like Penei Sewell, Jonah Williams, and now Francis Mauigoa, Jackson Cantwell, you can be next. The Hurricanes are on a major rise in that recruitment. Georgia and Oregon have been mainstays at the top. If you would have asked me a couple weeks ago, where do you think Jackson Cantwell is going to go? I would have said, I think it's going to be Georgia. But right now, I think that this one could be going towards someone else, and we will see where the chips fall here. I think he does decide before he takes his official visits as he tries to lock in on his college decision while finishing his junior track season very strong.
So we could be, because official visit generally start at the beginning of June. So you think we get a decision from the number 1 overall recruit before June?
I do indeed. I think that is the plan now. And I think his representation over there at Rosenhaus is having their final conversations with these coaching staffs to figure out what this looks like from an NIL standpoint. And with Jackson Cantwell, you may be offering a lot, but another program might be offering more than you. And when you add that up over 3-4 years, that becomes 4 times more than what you're offering, and sometimes maybe even a little bit more. So he's got a lot to balance between on-field track record, player development at the position, style of play, and then certainly NIL. And I think you got Georgia, Oregon, and Miami leading the way. Our colleague Pete Nako's reported as much this week, so we're hearing it from all angles. And we'll see who is the one program at the end. But these teams have reeled in Georgia. Georgia was the leader for a lot of the process. They have major competition here at the end.
February to March, we heard a lot about Michigan making a move, but yesterday we had EJ Holland on the channel from the Wolverine, and EJ said that, Michigan's not, in some cases, presenting an NIL number to some top recruits, and he mentioned Jackson Cantwell as one of them. Do you think this is a situation where, because you didn't mention Michigan as one of the top 3 in your opinion, do you think this is an NIL issue with Michigan, or they just never really got the traction going with Cantwell in the first place?
Well, it's hard to say exactly because I do think Michigan was in that 3 hole at one point, Josh, behind Georgia and Oregon. And they certainly check a lot of boxes for him for what he's looking for in a school. But again, to the point I made at the top of the show, these NIL conversations he's having, you may have put a hefty offer on the table, but there might be someone way bigger. So let's just say you're in the game at 1.2, but someone else is in the game at 2.4. And you add that up over 3 years with some raises, That's a difference of 3-4 extra $1 million out there. So even though you may like one school a little bit better, their O-line coach a little bit better, or their culture, their campus, or whatever, you might be $4 million behind in the long run. And that's something that could tilt it one way or the other. So there's a lot of moving parts in this recruitment, a lot of things that he still has to talk to his family about down the stretch of his recruitment. But he has all the information. Now it's about sorting it out, getting the cards where he wants them, and making the decision that's best for him, the combination of it all. I don't think this is a true NIL decision for Jackson Cantwell, but it's a factor, and it'd be a factor for anybody going through the process with the type of means he's able to earn in college, which would set him up for life beyond what a professional career would be in football or track or medical sales or wherever this thing takes you. I think he's going to have a chance to be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft and play a long time in the league. He certainly, the way he's setting records in track and field, has a chance to go compete for a gold medal and be a Nike athlete in at the same time if he chose to do that. But then certainly you got the NIL conversations and some major money, and maybe you're a little behind for 1 year, but you're way behind when you start adding up 2 and 3 and adding up all that money collectively. So, but he has the information. Now it's time to decide. No need to get out on the road and travel. He's saying as much. Yeah. So these are fine. Anytime you talk to Jackson Cantwell from now until he makes his decision, it might be your last conversation with him before him and his family really sit down and decide which program is the one for him.
All right. Well, right now there's no expert predictions logged yet for Jackson Cantwell. I'm sure that now that, it sounds like we're going to come down to a decision, you're going to get working on that. But just generally speaking, how do you navigate putting in a prediction on a recruit that's this big, this kind of the number 1 recruit in the country? When is it time for you to put that prediction in?
Well, there was a time where I almost logged one in for Georgia and talked to Jackson about it. And he didn't say Georgia was his leader, but he didn't say, hey, don't put one in either, So I just didn't do it because there was still a lot of, for a recruit of that magnitude. And I don't know, Josh, I mean, it just changes, when do I put in a pick? When do I not put in a pick? Just whenever I feel comfortable is when I put in a pick. And for Jackson Cantwell, and when I put in a pick, generally it's what I think the current pulse is in a recruitment. So it would have been fair to put one in for Georgia, but a lot of runway in that recruitment. He had a lot of visits to go. He had a lot of great relationships with programs and could see himself at a lot of schools. So even though I've always felt good about Georgia's position and the intel has favored the Bulldogs, they've had major competition. And as we get close to the finish line, that competition is very much closed the gap. And I don't even know if Georgia's in the lead right now, where a couple of weeks ago I still would have said I thought they were in the lead.
All right. Well, let me ask the real recruiting experts. You guys get in the comment section and tell us where Jackson Cantwell is going to land. Let us know.
Wiltfong Whiparound listeners, let's talk about Game Time, your go-to place to get last-minute tickets for your favorite sporting events. Is your favorite NBA team on the verge of clinching home court advantage like mine is? Then you want to be on Game Time buying your last-minute tickets like I did for Friday night's home game for my team as we try and solidify our great positioning in the Eastern Conference. Here's the scenario. It's also baseball season, and the team you've been rooting for your whole life is ready for a big season like mine again. And you want to go to the game with your friends and family only to find out that they're completely sold out. My team's pretty popular up there in the friendly confines. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down as it gets closer to first pitch, as it gets closer to tip or kick. With the killer last minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guaranteed, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets, NBA tickets, and more. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of the Wiltfong Whiparound. Summer is approaching, and there's nothing better than catching an afternoon baseball game or an NBA playoff game. Game Time has the best last-minute deals. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. Get your culture in, take your girl out to the show. Game Time Picks make last-minute ticket buying easier than ever by quickly highlighting the best deals in the stadium. So here's what we're going to do. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code ON3, ON the number 3, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code ON3 for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Let's head down to Athens, talk a little Georgia Bulldog recruiting, because Georgia has a big weekend on tap as Kirby Smart and his staff host top targets as this weekend to conclude spring camp. 5-star Mark Bowman, that's the one we're going to highlight right now. He is the number 2 rated tight end in the country out of Mater Dei High School out there in California. Texas has been trending recently. We know USC is heavily involved. But Georgia, in their history of tight ends, where do you think the Dogs stand heading into this weekend?
Well, they've always been one of the favorites for Mark Bowman, 5-star recruit out of Santa Ana Mater Dei, the On3 Industries number 2 tight end in the country. He's been to Georgia several times. He was at G-Day last year. Mm-hmm. He's going to be at G-Day this year. He went to a game during the season, but he's already on campus Thursday, taking in a practice. That's the main thing about this visit, his dad told me, to see a practice, see a live practice, see Todd Hartley, tight ends coach, in action. They said they can't wait to hear Kirby Smart on the microphone. You always hear about Coach Smart running around at practice, coaching players, coaching coaches, bringing the energy, bringing the juice to a Georgia practice. So his dad called it a one-shot deal to see Georgia's practice. Then they're going to stay in town through the weekend. And obviously on the Inside Scoop, Wiltfong Whiparound, we've been talking about Texas rising in the recruitment of Mark Bowman, USC grabbing some momentum. But Georgia's always been a major contender because of what they do offensively, what they've done recently with the tight end position, and then just the level of play, always competing for championships. That's what Mark Bowman's used to at Mater Dei. And he talked about the way they spread the ball around and the way they use the tight end as being things that stand out to him about Georgia, to me, in the past. So still some moving and shaking in that recruitment. Georgia's one of the front runners. And Josh, if I'm looking at the top 4 players on Georgia's board, Mark Bowman's one of them. Jackson Cantwell, number 1 offensive tackle, number 1 player in the country, is one of them. They're in the top 3 for him, in my opinion. I think they've led at times, but as he nears his decision, Oregon and Miami certainly up there with Michigan, Ohio State, and Mizzou rounding out the top 6. Then you got Tyler Atkinson, number 1 linebacker in the country. We've liked Georgia's position for Tyler Atkinson for a long time. In-state prospect, Ohio State, Auburn, Clemson, Oregon, USC, some of the others trying to cloudy that up for Georgia and Tyler Atkinson. And then, of course, you got quarterback Jared Curtis, number 1 quarterback in the country, number 3 player overall from Nashville. He was originally planning to go to G-Day this weekend. I am not expecting him at Georgia this weekend, but I don't think that's an indication of Georgia fading. I think it's more of a respect thing, like, all right, Georgia and Oregon are my finalists. If I go to Georgia one more time, do I have to go to Oregon one more time? And just the relationship he has with Dan Lanning, Will Stein, the respect for that program.
Kind of simplifies things for his recruitment.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Exactly right. But those 4 guys, if Georgia can land those 4 guys, and they're in the top 2 or 3 for all of them, those are the guys that they would draft first, in my opinion, this cycle.
All right, Steve, any other notable names in Athens this weekend Dog fans need to know about?
Well, absolutely. A couple commits coming back that have been taking visits elsewhere. Receiver Vance Spafford, safety Zach Fort. Those guys will be back on campus this weekend. 2 official visitors, the number 4 safety in the country, Jira Edwards out of Baltimore St. Francis, and the number 8 offensive tackle in the land, Malachi Lee out of Honolulu, Hawaii. They'll be on their official visits. Jira Edwards visited Georgia in early February, had a great visit. Maryland, Texas A&M, Oregon, Auburn, some of his other favorites, but Georgia making a move here this calendar year with Jira Edwards. And this will be the 3rd time on campus for Malachi Lee, too. He loves the intensity of their play. He's told me it's a place he can see himself. It's a big week for Georgia in the secondary. Not only will they have Jaira Edwards on campus, but David Benjamin's the number 2 corner in the country per On3. He's visiting this weekend. Peyton Dyer, a 4-star from Duluth, Georgia, recently decommitted from South Carolina. Georgia is one of the favorites in that one moving forward. Ohio State and USC involved. And I logged to On3 RPM in favor of Georgia for safety Keelan Jones, joining colleague Chad Simmons and other out of Sprayberry. He's visiting this weekend, Georgia. I like where the Bulldogs stand. A couple more names of note. Kamari Brooks, on 300 edge rusher from in-state. I think he's been to Georgia like 10 times this calendar year. Maybe I'm off by a couple. Alabama's the competition, but Georgia, Alabama battling for Kamari Brooks. And then Akini Ogboko, one of the most coveted offensive linemen in the country out of North Carolina. His brother, Nnamdi Ogboko, plays at Georgia. He's going to be up at the spring game. So some big-time guys, some key 2027s. The top quarterback in the country in 2028, Jaden Wayne, will be on campus as well. So exciting weekend for G-Day. Mark Bowman already has it off and running on campus in Athens right now as Georgia tries to land one of their most coveted targets.
Let's talk some Alabama recruiting. It's A-Day this weekend, which means it's going to be a day for recruiting. Steve, we know there's going to be some big names on campus. What do you got for us?
Yeah, well, St. Louis defensive lineman Titan Davis, one of the most coveted players at the point of attack in the country, will return to Alabama for the second time this calendar year. He has his official visit set for Tuscaloosa this summer as well. Alabama battling Michigan and Nebraska for Titan Davis. I think his visit to Michigan most recently was a major needle mover. So Alabama getting one of their most coveted targets regardless of position back on campus. It's their serve, ready to make another move with Titan Davis. Xavier Crowell is the number 2 running back in the country. As we talked about on Wiltfong Whiparound on Monday, I think Alabama's setting the pace in that recruitment. I feel really good about their position for Xavier Crowell, the number 1 recruit in Ohio. On 300 linebacker Sincere Johnson returns to Alabama. He's already been there multiple times. And while my on 3 RPM is on Ohio State, Alabama is no question the biggest threat to the Buckeyes. He can see himself at Alabama. He has family from the state. They're doing a great job recruiting him. And we saw Alabama go into the Buckeye State in 2025 and beat the Buckeyes in Oregon and others for linebacker Justin Hill. They're now looking to do it with Sincere Johnson. I think they can get it done. Bama Online has more key names expected on campus. One of the nation's top safeties, Jet Washington. Tyson Bacon's a Tennessee defensive line commit from the state of Alabama that Alabama's been building momentum with. Cam Johnson is a in-state defensive line recruit. I like the way that one's shaping up for the Tide. And then Bryson Cooley is an offensive tackle that's really coveted in SEC circles that Alabama is slated to host this weekend per Bama Online. Crimson Tide, top 5 recruiting class right now. If they're going to stay in the top 5, they'll need to land a lot of these guys, and I think they can.
Let's talk a little Ohio State Buckeye recruiting. We got spring game this weekend. We got new predictions from you, but let's start with one of the biggest names that'll be in Columbus this weekend. Number 1 linebacker Tyler Atkinson from the state of Georgia is returning to Columbus.
Yeah, he's been to Ohio State a few times already in his process. Really one of the first prospects to emerge in the 2026 cycle. Tyler Atkinson's been on our radar since going into his freshman year. So it just goes to show you how fast time flies. His recruitment is winding down and won't be long before we know where this coveted Peach State prospect is going to be playing his college football. And Ohio State has his great chance to land it. You know, they're in that top 2 or 3, in my opinion. Loves the way they play, loves Coach Laurinaitis, the way they develop linebackers, the stage that they play on, the culture and mindset of the program. Them winning the national championship resonated with him. He's been up there for game visits. You know, he was up there in November for a game and had a fabulous time. Again, loved the way they played, loves the fans. So he's just getting back up around campus. Ryan Day, Laurinaitis, Coach Walton went to see him in January. He's really excited to get up to Ohio State. He's obviously been to Georgia the most, Clemson, Auburn, USC, Oregon, some of those other programs that are in the thick of it for Tyler Atkinson. But I have Ohio State close to the top of the list for him. Another big visit as they push for the number 1 class. It's number 3 right now, but on paper, pound for pound, it's as good as any class in the country. They have a chance to finish number one. Tyler Atkinson would be a big part of that.
Steve, Ohio State fans are buzzing over your latest prediction on the offensive side of the ball. Talk about it.
Yeah, Carson Baker, 6'2", 200-pound back out of the Peach State, visited Ohio State this week. Came out of the trip, told me the Buckeyes are his leader. My on-3 RPM reflects that. From the offense, Ryan Day, Coach Carlos Loughlin, the culture, the vibe around the program, the way he felt like he fit in. It's Ohio State setting the tone. Now they got to hold off some programs. Mm-hmm. South Carolina, Florida State, Florida. Some of the programs, Clemson is in the middle of that recruitment. But going into his official visits, it's Ohio State leading the way for Carson Baker. Going into official visits, it's Ohio State leading the way for Favor Akee. I think right now those are the two running backs they land. Favor Akee will be at the spring game this weekend. That'll be a sports visit of the spring. He's taking his official June 6th, so I have him on commit watch for his official visit, of course. And then Carson Baker, he has his official visit for the summer. I think they land him as well. But there's other running back targets out there for the Buckeyes. Derek Cooper's visiting this weekend. Ohio State, I like where Georgia stands for Derek Cooper right now. Mm-hmm. But Ohio State, certainly a program that could change that trajectory. Savion Hyder's the number one running back in the country. They hosted him for a spring practice. They'll get him back for an official visit. So they're swinging at those two. But right now, I think it's in a better spot for Baker and Akee. We'll see what happens.
Any other notable names in Columbus this weekend for the spring game?
There is indeed, Josh. 4-star receiver Caden Dixon-Wyatt is back. He was recently on campus for a spring visit. He was then at Oregon. Now he's back at Ohio State. That's who they're battling. They're battling the Ducks. There's some buzz that the Buckeyes lead. So getting Dixon-Wyatt back on campus is a big deal. We just talked about Derek Cooper. Quarterback Ryder Lyons is expected to visit, 5-star from Folsom, California. Ohio State does not have a quarterback committed in this cycle. Ryder Lyons is the guy that Coach Fessler and company are really pushing for as they evaluate some other guys like Nathan Bernhard, Peyton Falzoni, the Zamet kid from New Jersey, to name a few. But Ryder Lyons has an offer from Ohio State. They'd like to make a move there. BYU, Oregon, USC have been the perceived top three. Ole Miss got them on campus last week. Michigan's in there. But Ohio State, what they've done historically at quarterback under Ryan Day would be exciting to any prospect, Ryder Lyons included.
That recruiting momentum we've been talking about when it comes to Notre Dame, it is here. Steve, today the Irish landed a huge commitment, a 5-star commitment, edge Rodney Dunham. How did Notre Dame get it done?
Well, 2 visits to South Bend, one nearly a year ago. Notre Dame took the lead in his recruitment at that point. But he's like, dude, it's cold up there. It's cold up there. But any visit he took after that, he told me he was comparing those schools to Notre Dame. And he goes, none of those places, South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, had, in his opinion, what Notre Dame offers. He said, Notre Dame, there's only one place like Notre Dame, and it's Notre Dame. I grew up. I realized the cold doesn't matter. I have to play in the cold someday. Then I picked the school for me. And look, he talked about the opportunities Notre Dame has in football, the opportunities they present off the field. You're getting developed by the best, and you're playing with the best. He said you're getting a world-class education, great degree, amazing people. That's what attracted him the most. Marcus Freeman's an amazing leader. He was talking to people on the Notre Dame campus, people that worked in the cafeteria, about Coach Freeman, and they talked about the way he leads his program, the way he carries himself. Talked about Coach Freeman as a father, person in the community, being a man. All of those details, all of those conversations, all of those experiences added up to Rodney Dunham Jr. committing to Notre Dame. He visited on March 22nd, got back around the Golden Dome, touchdown Jesus, loved it again, gave his commitment, went public with his decision, and Notre Dame, with Rodney Dunham Jr. and Ebenezer Ewatati in the fold, there might not be another program in the country that signs defensive end edge rushers like Notre Dame is set to land in those two in this 2026 cycle.
All right, Steve, this is a great time for Notre Dame to capitalize on some of this momentum because they have a big visit weekend on tap. Who else are we expected to be in town?
Well, the week's already off and running. They had on 300 running back Jonas Walton in for 3 days. I spoke with him earlier today. We'll have an article on three either later today or Friday morning. He's the number 7 running back in the country. Had another great visit. He'll come back for his official visit, but enjoyed getting around Coach Freeman. It was really his first time in person around Coach Sider, Notre Dame's new running backs coach that they hired away from Penn State. He likes what Notre Dame offers on the field, off the field. He's a fit personality-wise. So Notre Dame's week is off and running with Jonas Walton. This weekend, speaking of running backs, Javian Osborne's back on campus, 4-star recruit from Forney, Texas. Notre Dame's trending on the on-3 RPM. Michigan's the other program. Michigan has trended at times in this recruitment, so Notre Dame is looking to put it away this weekend with Javian Osborne. Tiki Hola is a 4-star defensive lineman from the Lone Star State. I think Notre Dame and SMU top the list. He's committing in May. I would give the edge to Notre Dame, but we'll see what happens this weekend. Noah Clark's a 4-star defensive lineman from North Carolina that they've been recruiting hard, that they'll be excited to get on campus this weekend. Braden Robinson, 4-star receiver from Red Oak, Texas, returning for the second time this calendar year. A top target for Notre Dame in that receiver room as they aim to get more dynamic. He's coming off a great visit to Miami. Ohio State and Arizona round out his top 4, but Notre Dame, some think that they lead, so we'll see what happens. And then I have a new prediction for Notre Dame, Josh. In the 2027 class, it's an in-state recruit, Chase Brewer. He's in the on 300 2027 player rankings. Notre Dame offered him on St. Patrick's Day, Pot of Gold Day. It's early in his process, but Notre Dame, certainly an eye-opening offer for him. He's excited to get on campus, and I just like the trajectory of that recruitment with the Irish. So another big weekend for Notre Dame. And the way they're recruiting, you figure they're going to close some of these guys like they closed Rodney Dunham Jr. today.
All right. Well, now we got a special package to open. We've been talking Sac State, Sacramento State. Yes, we've been talking about there's been 5 stars on campus at Sac State this offseason, and the boys are buzzing out there when it comes to recruiting. And you got a special package we're going to open live on the Wiltfong Whiparound.
Yeah, Sac State, man, there is a lot of recruiting momentum, a lot of buzz, a lot of excitement on social media for what Coach Brennan Marion and that staff are doing. They already have 12 commits in this class, including one of the state's top quarterbacks, Jacob Chambers out of Rancho Cucamonga. He's a dual threat guy that has the traits to be prolific in Coach Marion's go-go offense. He takes care of the football. He can be dangerous with his legs. Lindsey Graves is one of their top running back targets. He's from Clovis East, Josh. 10.6 speed in the 100-meter dash, 4.4 speed in the 40-yard dash, rushed for 10 touchdowns as a junior, can also catch the football. He talked about what Coach Marion's done in the past, seeing the type of coach he is firsthand in practice. He believes Sac State can really rise and become one of the top programs out west. But they're in the middle of it for a lot of guys, and they're recruiting hard. They're communicating with a lot of people. They're sending a lot of mail. I'm getting mail from Sac State. We got a package.
What do we got here?
We got.
Be careful. It might be fragile.
To the whip around.
Could be a live animal
actually,
in there.
I was on spring break last week, Josh, and tornadoes came through the Indianapolis area, and I thought this would be blown. When I saw it on the front porch, it was soaked. I was surprised it was even there and not down the road. And
well, if it was sent by Sac State, I'm sure it was on time. It was there. It was consistent, and it's a winner.
Let's see what they sent the whip around now, Josh. They got this packaged up pretty good here. What kind of letter opener does the Newberg household have at their house?
Butcher knife, mainly.
Excuse me?
I just take a butcher knife to it.
Right. Well,
but we could be dealing with the dog. I don't know what's in here.
Heavily taped. Let's see what we got. I don't think it's anything alive.
Okay.
Let's see what we got.
That will bode
here.
well for the show. Because if it was a dead dog, it wouldn't be a good thing.
Oh, yeah. Here's some stuff for my kids to pop. You remember popping that stuff? Oh, yeah. Got a little background decoration here.
Oh, let's
Josh.
go.
Little helmet here. Something that my kids will want to bang around with. Be Sac State versus On3 Elite at some point here in the Wiltfong basement. But we appreciate Coach Marion and company sending this to us. at the Wiltfong Whiparound and On3 Recruits channel. A few other top targets as they continue to work on this recruiting class. Outside linebacker Mickey Williams from Sacred Heart Cathedral. He's an edge rusher type that loves Coach Marion's vision for the program. Roger Vanderhoff and Sunia Vuki are a couple offensive linemen that they would like to add to the fold as they bolster the point of attack. And then the secondary is a major point of emphasis for Sac State as they continue working on this 2026 class. Major Hinchin, Rajon Duncan, and Stephania Alatini are three guys that they're really all in on. They got a bunch of playmakers already committed. I saw Christian Davis play at the overtime OT7 event over the weekend, and he played really well. Kamari Smith is committed to them, also a big pickup for them in state. That'll do it for today's episode of the Wiltfong Whiparound. Please hit like and subscribe to the On3 Recruits page so you're up to date on the best recruiting information on the web. You guys have a great weekend. We'll be back on Monday to break down some of the biggest visits that happen across the country.